Don't take the black pill. The black pill is a lie and it is poison. The black pill will destroy you. My name's Topher Field, and this is the Topher Project episode 2, all about the black pill. What is the black pill? Well, the black pill is despair, and we see it all around us. We see it in the comments, even on my own content, and we'll probably see some even on this video. It's the comments that say that they have everything under control, that they, this mysterious, mythical they, are absolutely in control of absolutely everything, and that nothing good can possibly happen, because anytime something good does happen, it's assumed that they must be up to something. They are pulling the wool over our eyes. They have got some controlled opposition. Oh, I thought that person was a good person, but then they had this success over here, and that means that they must be behind them. It's this weird kind of mental illness, quite frankly. People that fall into despair. We see comments like, they have decided. We saw it with the Voice to Parliament referendum here in Australia. I'll go into more detail on that in a moment, but so many people told me they have decided that the Voice to Parliament referendum is going to be a yes. Well, they were wrong in that case. We'll get to that in a minute. Or they won't let that happen. Anytime something good looks like it might happen, or they won't let Trump win the US presidential election, as if they have this absolute control over the outcomes of things like elections. Or what they then do when something does happen, when Trump did get elected, oh, well, then Trump must be one of them. He must be part of their plan because he couldn't possibly have won unless they decided that he should. It's this weird kind of cultish worship of this mysterious they, this omniscient, omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful they that's out there controlling absolutely everything. It's weird, and it's wrong, and it's terribly, terribly bad for you. Let's take the Voice to Parliament. I was told time and again, don't bother fighting against the Voice to Parliament. They have decided that it's gonna win. It's gonna be a yes. We're gonna have this Voice to Parliament. It's gonna be enshrined in our Constitution. Well, thankfully, I ignored the Black Pill Brigade entirely, and I campaigned anyway, as did many other great people who were far more effective on that campaign than I ever was. And sure enough, by the time it was all said and done, the no vote won convincingly. Not a single Australian state went to the yes campaign. The predictions that they had already controlled it, selected, not elected, all that stuff, were completely wrong. What happened? Did the Black Pill Brigade come back to me and say, oh, well, you know what, maybe I got a bit caught up in despair. Maybe I took the black pill. Maybe I need to rethink a few things. No, of course not. What they did was they doubled down and they said, oh, well, they only let it win because they've got some other worse thing planned for us. The they were somehow still in charge, even though the they didn't get the thing that these people said the they wanted in the first place. It's crazy. It's madness. We get stuff like the misinformation, disinformation bill. I was told, don't try and fight it. They have decided they want the misinformation, disinformation bill here in Australia. Well, sure enough, we fought it. We won. The misinformation, disinformation bill was defeated. What did the Black Pill Brigade do? They came out there saying, oh, well, that was just a distraction for the under-16s age restriction. That's all that was. They never really planned on getting the misinformation, disinformation bill, and we know they didn't because they didn't get it. And if they wanted it, they would have got it. It's this circular, self-referencing kind of logic. It drives me insane, quite frankly. Talk about Musk buying Twitter. People said, oh, well, they won't let Musk buy Twitter. They wouldn't let a man like Elon Musk be in charge of a platform like Twitter. Well, sure enough, Musk bought Twitter. And all of a sudden, they're all saying, well, Musk must be one of them. He's part of the they because they let him buy the Twitter. Oh, for crying out loud. Give it a rest. Listen. You're behaving, people who hold this black pill idea are behaving as though they are some monolith, as though we're up against some single-minded entity like a Borg that people get assimilated into and they all behave in lockstep. They're all willing to sacrifice themselves for this greater ideological good of the mythical they. The they is not a singular united thought process or a single agenda working as one mind against us all. That is a cartoonish view of what the they is. It's a Bond villain, one-dimensional sketch of what that would look like. No. The reality is that people with power want more power, and people with money want more money. And I'm not denying, by the way, the existence of people with power that want more power, and they're willing to take it off you, and people with money that want more money, and they're willing to take it off you. I'm not denying that that's real. I mean, these groups, the Bilderberger Group and the Club of Rome and these things, they're real. These, the World Bankers, all these guys, they exist. They're real. They do meet together. They do have plans and agendas and things that they do want to do. I'm just denying that they have this sort of level of control that justifies this amount of almost worship that they seem to get by the Black Pill Brigade. The fact is, if power wants more power and money wants more money, where do they get it from? Well, they get it from other people that have a lot of power, and they get it from other people that have a lot of money. These people, they might show up to the same events. They might all show up to Davos and show up to various places and various events around the world, but actually what they're doing is they're jockeying for position largely against each other. They are a house divided. We know that because historically this has always been the case. Read any history book about any of the courts of any of the kings of Rome, or any detailed histories of the dynasties in China. Read about the Politburo in the USSR, for crying out loud. This was not a monolithic they. This was a whole cast of characters, each with their own agendas, all with power trying to get more power, with money trying to get more money. Some newcomers trying to worm their way in. Some of them get accepted, some of them get rejected. It is a world of intrigue in and of itself. And these international bankers and business people and billionaires and prime ministers and presidents, these people are not a united club. They are working against each other just as humans have always done, even when they achieve positions of power and influence. They hate each other, actually. And they undermine each other constantly, because if you want more power, the easiest thing in the world to do is to get it from the person that has lots of power. It's hard to go out into the world and take little teeny tiny bits of power from lots of people. And yes, they are trying to do that. I'm not denying that. But actually, mostly they're playing games against each other. They want each other's power. They want each other's money. Imagine a committee, the USSR Politburo. Imagine a committee that's made up entirely of the Wizard of Oz type characters. Only instead of there being one all-powerful Oz, you've got a whole bunch of little people behind the curtain, all trying to project themselves to be so much more and so much more powerful than what they are. When they go to places like Davos, they're walking in there with their big boy pants on. They're all trying to put on a show and impress each other and pretend to be something so much more than what they actually are, because they know what exists behind the curtain, and it's not much. They know that. Yes, they have money. Yes, they have power, but they're not God. And they're actually a house divided against themselves, against each other. They're at war constantly. They're just people. That's all they are. The reality is, we stopped the voice. It's not because they changed their mind and decided that they wanted the voice to not go through after all. No, they wanted the voice to go through. Our politicians did, our celebrities did, our business community did, our media certainly did, and the international organizations, the UN and all these guys, they love that sort of stuff. They all wanted it to go through. We stopped it. The reality is, we stopped the misinformation-disinformation bill. The reality is that the people of America elected Donald Trump. The fact is that Elon Musk got a hold of Twitter and turned it into X and has done what he's done and has now forced Facebook into following his lead away from outright censorship and towards community notes. That wasn't part of their plan. They didn't commission that. That's not something that they wanted to have happen. It is possible, entirely possible, and it happens all the time, for us to get what we want. Now, it's a conflict. We're not always going to get what we want, but don't fall prey to this idea that they always get what they want. The fact is, we know that what we do matters. We know that people can make a difference, and we know this because we inherited freedoms from our ancestors. And if there was some mythical they, and often these groups are traced back 100 years, it's whichever secret society, blah, 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 a couple of 100 years, maybe a couple of 1,000 years, Knights Templar, all that kind of stuff. They trace them back, and these Black Pill Brigade go, those are the people that are meeting in shadowy secret rooms and controlling the world and making all of these decisions. Well, then how come we were born into the country that we were born into that had the freedoms that it had? Now, I agree our freedoms are under attack. I've been on the forefront of that for my entire career as a political commentator. I've been talking about it. I've been literally on the front lines at times. I know there's a battle on. I'm not denying that. But these people don't have control. There is no they that's making these decisions for us. The Black Pill is a lie. History is a power struggle. It can be understood as a struggle between those with power trying to keep it and those whose power was taken from them trying to get it back. And we are very much in a phase where we need to get some of our power back, all of it if possible, but we certainly need to reclaim some of the power that's been taken from us over the last number of decades. But the black pill actually takes us out of that fight. If you take the black pill and you believe that it's all futile, it's all pointless, they are going to get whatever they want, no matter what we do, then you're out of the fight. You're no longer contributing. You're no longer helping. The black pill, if it helps anyone, it helps the very they that the black pill brigade are supposedly afraid of. You want to help those people? Take the black pill. Don't take the black pill if you actually want to do something to make the world a better place. And the other thing is, taking the black pill, I've noticed a lot of this black pill brigade, the sensible thing to do, if you really have given up hope, if you really think there's nothing that can be done, the sensible thing to do would just be to go and find a little place where you can be happy and curl up in a ball and, I don't know, disappear into a hole in the ground. That would be the sensible thing to do. But what mystifies me is how many of the black pill brigade spend their time online fighting against the people who are trying to do something. This makes no sense to me. If you really believe it's beyond hope, then what do you care that other people are spending their time and their energy trying to do X, Y, or Z? Why do you feel the need to tell them that they're wrong? If you really think it's all pointless and all is lost, then you've got to admit that telling people that it's all pointless and all is lost is pretty pointless. The very fact that the Black Pill Brigade feel the need to fight against the people that haven't given up tells me that deep inside their soul, they're afraid that maybe they're wrong. They want you to take the black pill to validate the fact that they did. They want you to stop fighting so they can feel better about the fact that they're not in the fight either. That's why they try and push the black pill. If someone's actually taken the black pill and they want to check out and go and live their own life, you know what? I'm a libertarian, more power to you. But you want to get out there and spend your energy and waste other people's energy having a fight about whether or not we should be having a fight. Well, I've got a problem with that. Because you're taking yourself out of the fight and then you're using your resources, your time, your energy to try and take others out as well. And that does nobody any favors. We are at a historic turning of the tide. I'm completely convinced of this. What we are watching culturally is unlike anything that we've seen since the late 1960s or the mid-1960s and the start of the sexual revolution. What we're seeing politically is comparable to the collapse of the Berlin Wall, or perhaps more correctly, comparable to the turning of the tide during World War II. Let's not forget how dark those days must have felt. All of Europe has fallen to the Nazi regime. The Japanese are rampaging across the Pacific. We're on the back foot everywhere. And people are dying, like actually dying, in their millions. How dark must those days have felt? And then at some point, after fighting and losing and so many good people losing their lives and losing limbs and losing loved ones, there's so much pain and suffering because they fought and they didn't give up. Eventually the tide turned. And it must have been hard for so many people to even believe that had happened. It must have been hard at that moment in history to sit there and go, aha, the tide has turned. You wouldn't want to become hopeful because you'd be terrified that you were wrong and you were just going to get disappointed again. And I understand that feeling. I experienced it for years living through the COVID madness in Melbourne, Victoria, during all the lockdowns when I was on the front lines there. I understand that fear. You don't want to get your hopes up. But the reality is that turning point, it did happen. And it must have felt like a dream. It must have felt unbelievable at the time. And then you fast forward to the end of the war in Europe and the parties and the celebrations and then the end of the war in the Pacific. What a heady time that must have been. What an incredible time that must have been. And how impossible that must have felt just 3 years earlier. Tides turn. We are at the turning of a tide right now. And we need to actually push harder than ever before because history is being written. History is being written. We're watching it unfold. Other people, future generations, will read about this moment in history in a history book and go, wow, I wish I could have been there. Well, guess what? We are there. And it's awesome. If you just get rid of the black pill thinking, what an awesome time to be alive. I'm loving the show. I should have bought shares in popcorn companies because I'm pretty sure we're going to go through a lot of popcorn in the next couple of years. The black pill will stop you from being a part of history if you let it. So can I urge you, don't take the black pill. And if you have taken the black pill and you've sat there in the past and you've said, oh, but they this, they that, ask yourself, what would it take? What would have to happen to convince you that you were wrong? That the they isn't as powerful as what you've given them credit for? I'll bet you there's nothing. You're completely resolute in that thinking that they have everything under control, and nothing would ever be good enough, be enough proof to make you reconsider, to make you reassess. I watched people claim that they had decided the referendum, the voice referendum, was going to be a yes, and they didn't change their mind when it was a no. I watched people claim that they had decided that Trump wasn't going to win the election, and they didn't change their mind when he won the election. Just today, someone in my comments was making a prediction that Trump is going to be assassinated. Well, what if he's not? Is that person going to reassess and give up on this black pill thinking, or are they just going to find a way around it to double down, to triple down? Don't be that person. Don't be blind to the turning of the tide that is happening before your very eyes. And at least, if you can't help it, if you've taken the black pill and you honest to God you can't help it, can you at least not try and shove it down other people's throats? Can you at least let them do what they believe is right without having you dragging at their coattails and trying to hold them back and trying to slow them down? This is not a time for black pill thinking. This is a time for heroic deeds and great courage, and great rejoicing is coming very, very soon. I am absolutely convinced of it. I wrote a poem yesterday. I'm going to play that for you now, just to finish off today's video. But before I do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my newsletter at topherfield.net. I'm going to give you front row seats to this historic turning of the tide this year and in the years to come. Make sure you're on my email newsletter. Get some of my merch, get a t-shirt, get my book, Good People Break Bad Laws, get a hoodie. It's summer right now in Australia, but winter is coming, as the great Starks used to say. Goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com is where you can get all of my merch. And also, make sure you've watched my documentary, Battleground Melbourne, at battlegroundmelbourne.com. It's won 14 awards around the world. It is the documented history of what went down in Melbourne during the lockdowns. It's an incredible true story. I had the privilege of telling that story, but it's not actually my story. It's the story of initially a few dozen Victorians, and that grew into a few 100,000 Victorians as we grew a movement over that very, very dark 2 years. So I encourage you to watch. I'm going to finish with a little presentation here, something that I've already posted online as its own video, but I want to include it here to encourage you. We are at the turning of a tide, and what happens next is up to us, because the best part of our story hasn't been written yet. And the only thing that's going to stop you playing your part and being a part of this moment in history is if you take yourself out of the fight by taking the black pill. So please, don't take the black pill. My name's Topher Field. Thanks for watching. I know your arms are weary, and your mind is filled with lead. I know it's hard to overcome the doubts that cloud your head. Our governments have hit us with recession, war, and debt. But in this darkness, never doubt that it's not over yet. See, we were born with freedom and prosperity galore, but then we trusted the wrong people, and we are free no more. It stings the soul to think of all the glories that were lost. It hurts when you consider they were bought with such a cost. We owe it to our ancestors, the ones who made us free, and in turn we owe our children who depend on you and me to play our part while it's our time to uphold what is right. And though our arms are weary, we must not give up this fight. The storm which we have weathered has refined us like a fire. The dross has been removed, and now we seethe with righteous ire. As we set our hearts and minds upon the task that lies ahead, we will not see our children beg for freedom, nor for bread. It falls to us to put this crop of tyrants in their place, to ensure accountability and leave them in disgrace. To turn the tide and soon restore before it is too late to generations yet unborn the things that made us great. History is calling us to rise and play our part, and greatness is the destiny for all who have the heart to lift those arms so heavy and to grasp those clouds of lead, and to with them write a story to be told when we're long dead. That you and I, when 'twas our turn, stood tall, uncompromising, We faced these tyrants, one and all, their threats and fear despising. We restored our former glory, through blood and tears and sweat. Because the best part of our story, it isn't written yet.